Welcome to science. Today we are going to start a new animal because we've been talking about life cycles and different animals. Last week we spent the whole week in science learning about butterflies and caterpillars. Today we are going to talk about frogs. And we're going to learn about their life cycle and we're going to compare it to butterflies and caterpillars. But today we are going to learn about frogs. These are some of my favorite nonfiction books, the National Geographic Kids books. They have amazing pictures and so much amazing information. This one is written by Elizabeth Carney. They're usually written by different people, though. But it has a table of contents, and remember, a table of contents is only found in nonfiction books, which are real books. And our table of contents tells us if we were looking for something specific, like I wanted to know about frog babies, then I would look for frog babies on here, and it tells me to go to page 24, okay? But today I'm going to read you the whole book about frogs because there's lots of cool information in this book. So let's begin. Splash. Splish, splash. What is that sound? What is hopping and jumping around? What loves to swim? What loves to eat bugs? It's a frog. Can you hop like a frog? Maybe later you can practice hopping like a frog for PE or just for fun. Frogs live all over the world except Antarctica. Frogs usually live in wet places. They like rivers, lakes, and ponds. Now, we've talked about Antarctica before, back when we learned about penguins. And penguins actually do live in Antarctica. But it's so cold there, nobody else can live there. And we talked about polar bears too, and about how polar bears and penguins do not live in the same place. Do you remember that? It was a long time ago. But we did talk about Antarctica and how the penguins live there. Frogs can't live there. Why do you think frogs can't live in Antarctica? Think about why penguins can live there. They can't live in the same place. Why can't penguins live in, why can't frogs live in Antarctica? Because it's too cold. Only penguins can live there because they have really special flubber. Do you remember that flubber and how we put it on our hands in Miss Conley's room? We stuck our hand in the ice buckets, the blubber. It's called blubber technically, but it kept our hand warm. That's why penguins can live there. Frogs don't have that, so they can't live there. It's not safe for them. They wouldn't survive, just like we wouldn't survive in Antarctica. But penguins, oh my goodness, frogs like rivers, lakes, and ponds. Why do you think they like rivers, lakes, and ponds? Because they like water. But some frogs live in trees. Some even live in the desert. Desert is a really hot place. Frogs can be found all over the world. Wherever they live, that's their habitat, which means that's where they live. Do a close-up of the pictures for you. So those are a few different types of frogs. Croak. Look at this frog croaking. Some frogs' throats puff up when they make sounds. Each type of frog makes its own sound. The coqui frog is named after the sound it makes. It sounds like coqui. This frog is the size of a quarter. That means that frog is about that big. The little frog. Even small frogs can make loud sounds. So frogs croak, and you've probably heard frogs croak before. Lots of people say ribbit. They can ribbit, same type of thing. But their throat blows up into a bubble, kind of. Frogs make different sounds for different reasons. Sometimes it's to warn other frogs of danger. Sometimes it's to call to frogs nearby. This frog lives around noisy waterfalls. Other frogs would not be able to hear its calls, so it dances instead. Think about that. He lives near a noisy waterfall, so you wouldn't be able to hear him talk or him croak. So instead he dances. That's pretty smart, isn't it? It sticks out one leg and then the other. Can you dance like this frog? You can try that later for PE too. You can practice hopping and you can practice dancing if you haven't done PE already. Frog food. If you have done PE already, you could practice it tomorrow for PE. I don't know, so many options. Okay, so frog food. What is a frog's favorite food? Usually, it's insects. Frogs eat dragonflies and crickets and other bugs. Some frogs eat bigger animals like worms and mice. The American bullfrog even eats other frogs. He's the American bullfrog, so he can eat other frogs, and you can see him eating another frog there. But some frogs just eat bugs or insects. Other frogs can eat worms and mice, and some frogs can even eat other frogs. Now, do you think they eat frogs that are bigger than them or smaller than them? Smaller. They have to eat smaller frogs. What's that pink flash? It's how a frog catches bugs. It shoots out its long, sticky tongue at a passing bug. The frog pulls the bug into its mouth. If your tongue were as long as a frog, it would reach to your belly button. Stick out your tongue. Can it reach to your belly button? Nope, because you're not a frog. But if you were a frog, think about that. Stick out your tongue and look at your belly button. See how long your tongue would have to be a frog. It'd have to be really long, right? Every size and color. Frogs can be many different sizes. Take a look at those two sizes of frogs. The smallest frog is as big as a fingernail. Take a look at your finger. Look at your nail. That's the size of a frog. The smallest frog, which is called a microfrog. The smallest frog is called a microfrog. It is as big as your fingernail. The largest is as big as a rabbit, and he's called the Goliath frog. As big as a rabbit. He's a big frog. It's a big frog. And a tiny frog. Frogs can be many different colors too. Some frogs are green or brown. This one is called the tiger striped leaf frog. See his stripes on his belly? And he has green on the top. That probably protects him. Think about it. If he sits on a leaf and you look down at him, what do you see? You just see green, right? Back to those penguins. Remember those penguins we talked about in January? When they swim underwater, they're black on the top and white on the bottom, right? Because they're swimming like this. So if you look down in the water, you can't see him because he's going to blend in with that dark, dark water. But if a big animal looks up from the bottom of the ocean, he's going to see the white, and the white's going to blend in with the sky. It makes him harder to be eaten. This frog is the same way. You look at him from the top, he's green, he blends in with the leaf he's on. You look at him from the bottom, you probably can't see him because he's sitting on a leaf. But that protects him. So some are green and brown, others have stripes or spots. This guy is called the Amazonian poison dart frog. Frogs can be red, yellow, or orange. This one is called the red poison dart frog. They can even be bright blue, and he's called the blue poison dart frog. What did you notice about all of their names? These three, not this guy. These three. What was similar in their names? They're all called poison dart frogs. Usually, if a frog is an odd color and he's bright or he has stripes, that means that he's poisonous and you shouldn't touch him. Same goes for caterpillars. Just like last week, we talked about how some caterpillars could be poisonous, so you shouldn't just pick up a caterpillar. Usually their color warns their enemies. Just like he uses his color to save him, their colors save them. Because they're bright, and other animals know if they're bright, they don't want to eat them because they're not good for them. So all their colors have a purpose. Oh, this is going to talk more about that. Watch out. These colorful frogs may look pretty, but watch out, these frogs have poison in their skin. Their bright color warns enemies not to eat them. Didn't Mrs. Arnold just say that? Oh. So this guy is a poison dart frog. This one over here is also a poison dart frog. And this one down here is the yellow-banded poison dart frog. They all share those dart frog words again. poison dart frogs. This little frog is only an inch long. Its name is Terribilis, which means the terrible one. How did it get this name? By being the most deadly frog of all. One Terribilis has enough poison to kill 20,000 mice. So that little frog, see my thumb? My thumb is about 1 inch wide. That frog is as big as Mrs. Arnold's thumb. He will not be as big as your thumb because you have little thumbs still. Go steal one of Mommy's or Daddy's or Mimi's or someone else's thumb. Steal their look at their thumb. That's how big he is. So he's small, but he can kill 20,000 mice. He has that much poison inside him. What color is he? Yellow. Should you touch a yellow frog? Oh no. Frog babies. All frogs, even the Terribilis, have mothers. Mother frogs lay eggs. When the eggs are ready, out pop tadpoles. Tadpoles are baby frogs. They don't look like frogs yet. Tadpoles have tails. They only live in water. So they start as an egg, then they become a tadpole, and he has to live only in water. He can't leave the water. Look at him. He has a big long tail. Normal frog doesn't have that big long tail because they lose their tail. Tadpoles grow up to be frogs. 1. At first they breathe underwater with gills, like fish. 2. They grow lungs for breathing air. So they live underwater with their gills and they're growing lungs inside them so that they can leave the water eventually. 3. They grow legs for hopping and swimming. And 4. In 3 months, they lose their tails. No more tails. It's time to hop out of the water. Okay, so let's review a frog's life cycle real fast. It's much shorter. It's not 4 steps, it's 3. Starts as an egg, then he turns into a tadpole, and then a frog. Then it starts back over as an egg, right? That frog then lays eggs. Tadpole, frog. Lays eggs, tadpole, frog. Pretty easy, right? Now, we have turtles that live around here, right? Turtles and tortoises, and they're very different. And unfortunately, we didn't get to go see the really cool turtle show at school that usually happens on Earth Day. But a turtle lives in water, and a tortoise lives on land. Well, frogs are similar to that. Toads are frogs too. What's the difference between toads and frogs? Toads are a type of frog. Frogs spend most of their lives around water. Toads spend more time on dry land. Their bodies are built for where they live. So just like tortoises and turtles. Turtles like water, tortoises like land. Frogs like water, toads like land. So their bodies are built for where they live. So take a look at them. He has moist, smooth skin because it gets wet all the time. It stays moist. Does he have moist, smooth skin? No. He actually has very bumpy, dry skin because he doesn't get wet very often. Then, a toad doesn't have any teeth, but a frog does have teeth in his upper jaw, so he has top teeth, no bottom teeth. Some frogs can be poisonous. Toads, do you see this big lump right here? That big lump is a poison gland, so toads can also be poisonous, so you shouldn't touch toads either. Eyes do not bulge out from the body, so if you notice how his eyes kind of pop out of his body a little, they come up and out. His don't do that as much, they stay in more. And he has a poison gland located behind each eye. So he has a bump on each side behind his eyes. Those are filled with poison. Frogs have long, powerful jumping legs. Most frogs have webbed hind feet. They have webbed feet because they live in the water. Go like this. If you had a webbed foot or webbed hands, then you'd have do you see how you have like this little part at the very bottom, how it sticks up just a little? That would come all the way up here. Okay, so it'd come all the way up here between your things, and you wouldn't have gaps between your fingers because it helps push more water away as you're swimming. We don't spend a lot of time in the water. We're not made to live in the water, so we don't have webbed hands or feet. But frogs do, because they spend a lot of time in the water. Do you think toads have webbed feet? Do they spend a lot of time in the water? No, they don't, so they do not have webbed feet. They also have shorter legs. They don't jump as much as frogs. They don't jump as high or as far as frogs. They can still jump, but just not as high or as far. And frogs lay eggs in clusters or groups. So when they lay eggs, they lay them all together in a pile, kind of, okay? Toads lay eggs in long chains. So that means they lay them in a line. So see how they're different? But a few toads give birth to live young. Now, here's some really cool frogs. Are you ready? It's called the super frog page. So this frog here, his nickname is the two-faced faker if he was a superhero. A fake face fools enemies when the frog turns around. Two heads are better than one. So take a look at him. He looks like he has a head up here, and he has a head back here. That's why they call him the two-faced faker. Then we have the high flyer. Any frog can jump, but watch me glide. So that means he jumps, and he doesn't really fly, but he kind of glides. So he kind of flies, but he can't like flap and keep going. He just kind of, and then he'll fall, okay? Then we have the screamer. Loudmouth frog leaves enemies stunned. So they're a really loud frog. And then we have Mr. Invisible. Do you see him there? He's camouflaged. He's a master of disguise. So those are just some fun frogs that do exist. They are real frogs. They're not frogs that you can go and find in a pet store, though. Most frogs are not. You're not going to see the poisonous frogs there or anything like that. But I hope you learned some new information about frogs, and I hope you have a great day. I will see you tomorrow for another lesson about frogs. Bye.